Welcome everyone to the February monthly community meeting for the Johnson County Affordable Housing Coalition. My name is Jessica Andino, she, her pronouns, and I serve as the executive director of this fine organization. We host these monthly community meetings to just present on the activities and progress of the coalition in Johnson County. And then we also bring in local speakers to speak upon issues that are directly or indirectly related to affordable housing for our residents. Today we get to have Brad Comer here. He serves as the assessor for the city of Iowa City. But before we get to Brad and his exciting slides that he's prepared for us today, again, I do like to have a lot of transparency within our organization. So each time we start with these community updates. Throughout January and February, we've been extremely busy over here, as many of you have as well in your roles, either in direct service agencies or in any form of the world today. I feel like there's a lot of changes that we all need to keep up on. And so over here at the coalition, we've been working with some local partners like the League of Women Voters to host a Johnson County panel about affordable housing. Rachel Carr from Johnson County Social Services and I co-presented upon that, and many of you that are in this room were also in that room. So thank you for always joining us. You'll see this both in the outreach and education, and then also down below in the requests that we have been coordinating with our partners with the Iowa Housing Partnership and those at the Polk County Housing Trust Fund, a day at the Iowa Capitol. We originally had that scheduled for the beginning of February. State Capitol was closed for the unfortunate passing of a sitting state rep, and so it has been rescheduled for Tuesday, April 8th, with the plan starting at 2 p.m. If anybody needs a ride from the Johnson County area, please let me know. I have a mom van, and we're gonna putz down with that electric mom van to the Capitol that day. I also use that electric mom van to lug around some giant Legos, some jumbo Legos that we have used from AARP's previous grant on ADUs. We have them to use for other education and advocacy. So they're sitting at 3 Hills Bank locations in North Liberty and Iowa City. I have been working with staff over at Shelter House and then also with Johnson County Social Services and others at the local homeless coordinating board to hopefully get scheduled out some community-based rent-wise sessions within 2025. Rent-wise is a tenant-based curriculum, 6 modules that teaches or reinforces concepts of how to be a good tenant when renting in our community. We plan on hopefully hosting a presentation about rent-wise to local landlords at the Apartments Association sometime later in 2025 as well, to establish and reinforce partnerships that we have with local landlords. Other outreach and education, I have met with City of Iowa City staff and have been privy to some new developments that are occurring related to housing. One is related to Scarlet Point. That is the rezoning development at the old HHS building off of North Governor. Currently, it has passed Planning and Zoning Commission 6-1 for allowing 2 buildings is the rendering with 84 units. None of them are slated for affordable housing, as the developer is not requesting anything from the city other than a zoning by right. So we are coming up with creative solutions of how we could potentially add affordability compliance to those existing units. It may be if they seek funding from the Housing Trust Fund or other entities. But at this moment, it does not have an affordability component, as I said, but it is more housing. We have a large deficit of housing across the spectrum. So more development of housing is needed. That also goes with the South Lynn proposals. There were 3 proposals submitted in that RFP. That's where the old US Bank building lot is downtown across from the Englert. I've been informed that the 3 proposals are now morphing into only 2 proposals. So be on the lookout for that. There will be sessions at the Iowa City City Council level for the proposals to be more or less pitched in front of the council, and then a 10-minute Q&A session by counselors. I plan on feeding some questions to counselors to ask about affordability requirements, not only in terms of the number of units that will be within those buildings, but the who is owning the units. Is it a local nonprofit or a for-profit developer? Or you know, the compliance period, is it 5 years, 30 years, or in perpetuity? And then the last thing that many of you also weighed in on was our call to action about defending the Affordable Housing Fund at the City of Iowa City. As you probably were aware, there was a proposed 20% cut to that fund, and it was actually resolved with the advocacy efforts of y'all and everybody else, that the City Council has pledged to actually maintain the full $1 million. It was quite easy on us that actually attended that City Council meeting on February 4th, in which they resolved it in the work session prior. So my comments to the city got to be very easy. I was going to dazzle them with statistics and, you know, methodical processes, but instead I just got to say thank you, which is really, really great. We're very fortunate in Johnson County to have a caring city council sitting at mainly all of our municipalities. So thank you. Projects and programs, which overlap a lot with the education and outreach that we do. We've been doing some strategic planning. Some of you have been in groups that do strategic planning and understand the importance of it and the time-consuming nature of it. So thank you for allowing us the grace to be able to do that. Been working a lot with the residents of manufactured home communities here in Johnson County. They are formalizing a group of leaders called Johnson County Residents United that are sticking up for their rights against primarily out-of-state predatory owners. So stay tuned. There will be more with that coming forth in 2025 and beyond. The next two are kind of connected. We have been in a couple of working groups with tracking state legislative changes, and then also being very, very aware of the federal funding and potential uncertainties and cuts with HUD. It's unfortunate to see that certain policies and directives are being pushed through that would actually harm residents that are seeking the basic human right of housing. And so we are very on top of those issues that are coming forth. Again, in the realm of controlling things that we can control, I have been working hard with a couple of our partners, including the Housing Trust Fund, to coordinate another affordable housing bus tour in April. That is highlighting our commitment and our projects, programs, and partners that have worked really hard in the past decade or so to create and preserve affordable housing opportunities. This bus tour will highlight primarily properties that are in Iowa City, and it will be an invite for stakeholders to see that progress. I wish that everybody could hop on the bus, but unfortunately the bus only fits 56 seats, and I have to be one of them, so it's actually 55. So not everybody that is involved with the coalition will be able to attend, but we hope to also have it highlighted in local press, social media, and other outreach efforts. Last thing that's been consuming some of my time is working on a partnership grant with Iowa Valley Habitat for Humanity, in which the state of Iowa's actual habitat entity has secured grant funding to do both education and advocacy around solar, but also install solar panels on up to 5 previously constructed habitat homes. So reducing that housing cost burden of our residents in Johnson County by reducing energy expenditures. So that's a fun one. And also the great weather makes me think about it even more, right? Again, that last request went with that education component of join us at the Housing Day at the Iowa Capitol if you are available to do so. So without further ado, y'all love to listen to me talk, but I'm extremely excited to listen to Brad talk. And I'm not saying that in a condescending or sarcastic way. I'm actually very excited about this talk. I'm sure Brad has glazed eyes sometimes about taxes and assessment and how do those actually interact, but it's very nuanced. And I'm very excited to be able to have Brad here, be able to speak with us about that today. I do want to reiterate, Brad is from He's a county employee, but he works as the city of Iowa City Assessor. The county has different assessors as well. But I think that we have a good working relationship, and he'll be able to explain the nuances behind his position. So Brad, I'm going to use technology correctly and stop sharing to allow you the opportunity to do so. So welcome, Brad Comer.
Very good. Thank you, Jessica. Yes, very exciting information that I'm about to share. So I'm sure everybody's thinking that. I think it's interesting at the very least. So I am going to share my screen, and hopefully I'll do it right. I'm not used to doing this too much, but hopefully, is my screen on for you now? No? Let's try again. There we go. All right. Obviously, first page, I'm the assessor in Iowa City. I have been the assessor since 2015. I've been working in this office since 2002. Yeah, there is a Johnson County assessor that handles everything that's in Johnson County outside of Iowa City. I am responsible for everything that's in Iowa City. We are not an elected position. We're appointed by what is called the conference board. The conference board consists of the Iowa City Council, the Johnson County Supervisors, and the Iowa City School Board. I generally just meet with them a couple of times a year. I see a few people in the crowd here that have been at these meetings. I present my budget. One thing that's different about assessors is we do have our own budget and our own levy rate. Most other offices, like if you're talking about an office in the county, the auditor's office, for example, their budget is part of the bigger county budget, but we do have our own levy rates, and I guess that's the main difference. So similar to the city council, supervisor, school board, they all have their own levy rate. We have our own. I do meet with them generally for my budget. We had our first meeting February 4th, and the next one is coming up in March. Main job for assessors, as you probably all know, our job is to assess or appraise all real estate within our jurisdiction. There's a few different property classes: residential, agricultural, commercial, industrial, and we used to have a class called multi-residential. We still do keep track of those types of properties separately from residential, but multi-residential as apartment type properties with 3 or more units, they are now residential, and I'll show some examples of how their classes or how their taxes have been affected by that over the years. A dual class is commercial with a residential component. So like a lot of downtown buildings, you'll have commercial on the first floor and apartments above. So that was not always a class that was created, I think, in 2013. We are very much in the middle of completing our assessments for this year. Every 2 years, we do revaluations throughout town and send out assessments to reflect market changes. So it's in the odd numbered year that we do that, and this happens to be that 2025. So we will be mailing out assessments in late March, and our goal is to be at the current market levels. A lot of times I think I hear from the public that we're not at market, that we're below market at some percentage. And we probably do tend to be that way. The further that we get away from that revaluation, if we're only doing it every 2 years, we generally tend to lag, but then we catch up. And that's what we're going to do here in the next month. The other thing is equity is very important to us. If we have similar homes, we want to have similar assessments on them. If we're low, we want to be consistently low, I guess is the answer. But here's some things that we do not do. We do not collect taxes. The treasurer's office collects taxes. We do not calculate the taxes. The auditor's office handles that. And tax rates, although we're the first step, we're certainly part of the process. The assessment comes out first, but the tax rate is generally determined based on the budgets of each taxing body. So we're not directly responsible for any of those, but we certainly know that we play a part. As I said, January, we're about to send out assessments. It's really to reflect the condition of the property as of January 1st. For example, if a property was currently if it was new construction and it was only 50% complete as of January 1st, we would assess it for how far along it was as of January 1st. So you'd have a 50% assessment, even though we're mailing them out at the end of March. April 1st is actually the date that we're required to have our assessment notices in the mail. We usually try to have those out a little bit before that. This year, we're probably going to go right up to the last week in March. There is a time once you receive those, you're welcome to contact our office if you think if you have any questions. Really, if you think we're too high, we're too low. We get calls that we're too low sometimes. Can't please everybody, I guess. So April 2nd through April 25th is what we call an informal protest, or just an informal period where you can contact the assessor's office. We still have the option, or we still have the possibility of making a change to an assessment if we find out that there's something incorrect, or if we just feel like maybe we're too high or too low on the assessment and we wanted to make a change. We can do that through April 25th. After April 25th, the only way to get a change in your assessment would be to go to the Board of Review, which is April 2nd through April 30th, that you can file appeals to the Board of Review. The Board of Review is a 5-person board of Iowa City residents that have some expertise in real estate. They hear people's appeals during the month of May. Moving on here, some other dates. July 1st is another big date for us. Homestead credits, disabled veteran homestead credits, homestead exemption, which is fairly new. That's for homeowners that are 65 years of age or older. Then military exemption. I guess I'll point out the homestead credit is pretty much available to all homeowners. If you own your home, your name's on the deed, and you live in the home, you're going to qualify for the homestead credit. So you should sign up for that. You are only allowed one homestead credit, so it would be on your primary residence. Disabled veteran and military, disabled veteran, you have to have some level of disability from your military service. Our Veterans Affairs Office is very helpful with that. Military exemption is for people who have served active duty, have honorably discharged, and there's various qualifications for that too. And then the homestead exemption is the same thing as the homestead credit, it's just that you happen to be 65 years or older. Appeal options, as I mentioned, the informal review is the April 2nd through April 25th. Board of Review meets during the month of May, but you can appeal April 2nd through April 30th. If you're not satisfied after the Board of Review, or after informal, if you've appealed to the Board of Review and you don't get the decision that you're hoping for, you do still have the possibility of appealing to what's called the Property Assessment Appeal Board. It's a statewide appeal board, a 3-person board of, I think there's 2 appraisers and 1 lawyer. And that appeal to that board would have to be done I think it's the first 20 days of June, unless for some reason our Board of Review extended past the month of May, then they would say it's 20 days from the adjournment of the board. If you'd rather not go to the Assessment Appeal Board and you'd rather go to the district court, you have that option also. I don't know why any residential property would choose that direction. It seems like that would be costly. The appeal board's free. And you've got people that really work in real estate that are working at the appeal board. So I'd recommend that route if anybody wanted to go that far. Factors in calculating your tax bill. The assessment, obviously, as we said, is set. Once we get through the appeal period in May, we are required to send in our assessments to the Iowa Department of Revenue by July 1st. They compile all of the statewide assessments and come up with what's called we used to call it a rollback. It's officially called the assessment limitation. But so for residential property, if all of the value in Iowa added up to $1 billion, say, and it went up and we raised values 10%, the rollback would be reduced to keep the. I should point out I think the next slide is going to make this easier, but the rollback is a way to limit the statewide residential value growth down to 3%. So a couple of years ago, we averaged raising our residential property about 20%, but the rollback dropped way down to keep taxes from going up. It is a statewide number, so different jurisdictions will vary with how they're affected by it, but you'll see that in some calculations that I show coming up. Then the third part is the levy rate. Once the rollback is set in the fall, the assessment is set July 1st, and then the counties, cities, schools do their budgeting and finalize things in the spring. And that's when levy rates should be known. Like I just saw, I think I saw an article yesterday that the city had already preliminarily set their levy rate. I think it's at the same rate they were the previous year. This is an example of how you calculate a tax bill. We're using the simple example of a $100,000 assessment, which isn't very common, as you'll see on some numbers that I show coming up, but it's an easy way to show calculation. So the rollback is 46.34%. Goes out a few more numbers, a few more decimal points, but this gets the point across. So then you take 100,000 times that rollback, and you're left with your taxable value. That's what the state, they're looking at the total taxable value statewide, and they're keeping that from going up more than 3% when they set that rollback rate. From there, you have your taxable value, and then you'd multiply that by your local levy rate. And it's different in different school districts, different parts. In Iowa City, it's mainly $40.59 per $1,000 of taxable value. In this example, you end up with $1,881 of taxes. You deduct that homestead credit, you end up with $1,684. Split that in two because you get two payments, so one due in September and one due in March. If there are any questions at all while I'm going on, please jump in, because listening to me for a half hour might get a little long. Here's some examples of different assessment amounts and what their taxes would be. Assessment column, rollback. Most of these numbers, all these credits and exemptions are a set number. They don't vary based on the assessment. So the lower the assessment, the more impact those credits and exemptions will have on a tax bill. You can see in this column the percentage of tax, or the tax as a percentage of the assessment goes up as the assessments are going up. I should point out the homestead, the 65 plus exemption, this past tax bill was the first year that went on. It took off about $132. What it was is $3,500 of valuation that is removed from your assessment. I should know if it's assessment or tax value. I'm not sure of that right now, but it amounts to $132 off of your tax bill. And it's doubling for this upcoming assessment. It'll come in around $264. It'll vary every year based on the levy rates, but that's where we're at that point. So it was a very common thing for people to sign up the first year when it got a lot of media attention. But now, as people become 65, I don't know how people are going to be notified. We don't know how old people are, so other than just putting some social media notifications out to encourage people to sign up, I'm not sure what else we can do. So hopefully people are aware of that. This chart is kind of showing just what we've done with our assessments as a whole by class over the last 6 cycles. You can see residential. These are increases unless they're in red. So residential was pretty steady. 15 and 17 went up quite a bit in 19, leveled off after COVID, and then really recovered after COVID. We're thinking this year we're going to be around 8% on average for residential, but when I'm saying all these numbers are just averages, and we do analysis of different neighborhoods, different property styles. They're like for commercial offices probably aren't going to see 10%, but metal warehouses might see 20%. So these are just average numbers. Multi-residential, as you can see, they've gone up pretty good amount most years, but hold on for the tax results coming up. We look at how our assessments compare to sales, and that's what the Department of Revenue, the Iowa Department of Revenue, does too. So if a property is assessed at 95,000 and it sells for 100,000, our sales ratio is 95%. The goal, or we're required to be within 95 and 105% every 2 years when we do our adjustments. Right now, for residential, we're at 90.7% on our 2024 sales. So that means we need to get up into that 95% range. What we do is we line up every sale that happened. I think there's around 900 sales or 800 sales that happened this past year in Iowa City residential. And you line up all of those sales ratios from low to high, and you find the middle one. The median sale is really the one that matters, and that was 90.7%. And then we adjust all of our residential to get within that 95 to 105%. So if we wanted to be at 98%, we basically take 98 divided by 90.7, which I think is about 8%, which is what we're doing. So again, we're finding the 8% in different areas. It's not 8% across the board. If we didn't do the assessments on our own and increase into that neighborhood, then the state would come in and they would equalize values right at the 100%. That'd be probably more like a little over 10% increase, and it would just be a flat change, which wouldn't result in good equity. Here, this is something I put together for a legislative presentation that we had a few weeks ago. Kind of shows the different classes, how they've been how the assessments have been affected over the past 16 years, how the resulting taxes have come about. The 2007 is just seems like a weird year to pick, but we picked that because that's how far we could go back in the treasurer's website. So this is a commercial property. You can see over the years, I guess I'll point out we've got the assessment column and then how much it's changed, how much the assessment has changed each year here. Not a lot of changes. There was a couple big changes in here. This column is the cumulative change. So over that 16 years, the assessment changed 38.36%. Here's their tax bill each year. Here's what the taxes changed by each year. And then here's the cumulative tax. So the assessment went up 38%. Taxes went up about 16%, which if you look at it per year, taxes are going up about 1% a year for that particular property. In this chart, you'll see the orange is the tax bill, the blue is the assessment. Now, obviously, their tax bill went up. If you look in 2019, the assessment went up 10%. Their tax increased 12%. This past year, 15%. Tax went up 17%. So if you're just looking at those years, that's pretty big. Those are big bumps, and I'm sympathetic, of course, to that. If you add it all together at 1% per year, maybe not so bad. It'd be nice if we could have it leveled off a little more over that time period, but I think that's interesting. And here is another one right next door. It's a little less of a value, $347,000 assessment. I think the previous one was just about $1 million. I think one thing I should have pointed out on the first slide, 2013 was when the state had some legislation that helped out commercial property and apartment property. Apartments used to be considered commercial. In 2013, they created a business property tax credit and then also created a little bit of a rollback for commercial. What used to be at 100%, now it was phasing in to 95 and then 90. And then this business credit really reduced their tax, especially on the lower value properties. It had more of an impact. The business property tax credit no longer exists, but they've created something else that reduces the first $150,000 of commercial assessment to be treated the same as residential. So it gets that residential rollback. And so obviously on a property that's only assessed at $300,000, it has a pretty good impact on it. And you can see with this one, so their assessment's gone up 44% over the 16 years. Your tax bill has only gone up 3%. And both of these, you can see the taxes were lower than that 2007 year most of the time until we just got back to it 23. In 2023, commercial property did take a pretty good hit, even though their values only went up 10 to 14% probably on average, while residential went up 20%. Residential got the big rollback, commercial did not, so they went up about the same with what their assessments did. It's a little bit of a different story downtown. This is a bar downtown, and it's gone up 90% over that time period for assessment, 75% for taxes, so almost 5% per year tax increase. The downtown is affected by the downtown SMID. They pay an extra $2.50 to their levy, so it's hard to compare, I guess, with other parts of town, but their values downtown are strong, and they're paying a higher levy rate. Now we start to get into these that are dual class. The portions that have a residential component to them, they used to pay the 100% rollback. Now, over the past since 2013, they were phased down and now have the same levy or same rollback rate on the residential portion or on the apartment portion of their assessment. So this one had 66% commercial and 34% commercial in their assessment. Their assessment has gone up 100% over the time period, and their tax has gone up 47% or 43% per year. And I have 3 examples of dual class, with each one having a little bit more. This one's pretty much a 50-50 split, so 90% assessment increase, 26% tax increase. So the residential part has really helped this property, I would say. And then I thought I had one more, but I guess we're going on to residential. Residential has not had any legislation really to help it other than that 65 plus that I can think of. You can see there, unlike the other charts we were looking at, the orange tax line is on top the whole way here. 68% of an assessment increase over the time period and 71% for taxes. This is on a $310,000 home. There's a picture of it. All this other information is the same stuff as on the other slide. Here is another home that went up 40%. I should point out, like for this last year, notice like when we were on the commercial and they went up 10 or 11% and their taxes went up the same amount. Here's one that went up almost 21% in assessment, but their tax bill went up 4.85%, and that's all due to the residential rollback. It dropped from 54.6% down to 46.3% after the big increase of 23. And here is a property that gets the homestead, but also has a 65 plus homestead exemption. So they went up almost 20%. Their tax bill went up 1.5%. Now, these you'll start to see the diagrams look a little different. These are apartments, and their assessed value has gone up 77% over the time period. Their taxes are 17.5% less than they were in 2007. You'll see that each time on these apartment properties. Now, a lot of apartments were, if they were newer construction, they were converting to condominiums back when they could to get the residential rollback. These particular properties that I'm showing were not condos; they were actual one parcel apartment properties. This one I include the rent on the chart because I'm sure that when they were passing this legislation, they were thinking they were going to benefit the residents of the apartments, which, if you really thought that, that's pretty naive. But it didn't happen anyway. So here, the assessment increased 70%, the tax has gone down 20+%, and the rent since 2009 anyway has gone up 48%. So it's really just some extra money for the apartment owner. Trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to add to that. I should say that the rents are not necessarily verified. I get a lot of rent information off of websites, off of MLS and apartment owner websites, but that's the trend. Here's another one, went up 42% for assessment, tax bill's gone, it's 34% less than it was in 2007. Rents have gone up 50%. And this is probably just since 2013 for the rents. Yeah. So commercial and residential have picked up the tab. I mean, really, residential is the one that hasn't received the benefit of legislation. So I know they're talking about legislation this year. We'll see if who gets it. That's all for that. Now, these are a few charts that I put together just for this presentation. I think the main one on this screen would be the lower left-hand one. The number of single-family homes based on what we think we're going to send out for the 2025 assessment. We're still in the mad dash to figure out where we're going to end up on everything. But the reason I exclude that I wouldn't put much weight on the condos is, as I said before, there's a lot of apartments that are condos, so they're really not an opportunity for anybody to buy. So I think in this diagram, the ones on the left, and you can see there aren't very many. Well, 8 under 100,000. Mostly it's 200 to 300,000 are the primary, and then dropping, I guess. But yeah, 200,000 is kind of the starting point these days, it seems like, for a lot of stuff. The top one is just the two charts combined between single family homes and condos. This one is reflecting the sales. So in this case, the condominium chart I think is relevant because these are condominiums that are actually selling to individuals. Again, you see the same kind of thing though. The same price ranges are the most popular, the 200 to 300,000. Not much under 150 or really under 200,000. I will point out that the top two price ranges that I included on there are a bigger range than the rest of them, but that's why it shows us a higher number there. But yeah, I think this just shows that the affordability is an issue, of course. This is a page taken from my annual report. It shows what our median ratio is, as I said, 90.7. Number of sales, 868. This is the average price, but that's really heavily influenced by the high dollar sales. Our median sale price is 300,000. That's, I think, more relevant. And then this chart shows the number of, well, I did a search in our appraisal software of homes with the year built of these years. So in 2000, there was 118 single family homes. I didn't include condos in this one. But again, I think if you look, I think the average number was 124, I think, and the median was 126. But if you look at every year since 2017, we're under that. And 2023 really well under it. So again, I think what all of you would expect to see, that's part of the struggles these days. So that's all I had to present. I have our office website here, phone number, their office email also. But anytime anybody has questions or wants to talk about anything, I'm happy to meet. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Brad. Yeah, I have some questions. I'm going to go off, and then if anybody else comes on camera that wants to ask questions, feel free to interrupt me. One question I had was about the 65 plus homestead exemption, multiple owners. How does that work? Is it the first that hits 65? My parents are between those two age ranges, so would they qualify or not? How does that work?
Yeah, just one of them has to be 65 and be on the deed, I believe. But I know just one reached that age. Since they've added this, the homestead form does have a place for homeowners to put their age when they're applying for the homestead. We have been putting that in. If you're not that age yet, but you filled out the homestead and you put your birth date on there, then we have been planning to apply the homestead credit. But I certainly encourage people to verify also. But yeah, only one of them need to be 65. Was there a second part to that question? I can't remember.
Nope, that's it.
They need to be 65 as of January 1st. of
Okay.
that year. So like if they're applying right now, they need to be 65 as of January 1st. Even though the application deadline is July 1st, if they turn 65 in June, that doesn't get them there yet.
Makes sense. Thank you. Another question that I had, because at the coalition, we have been heavily advocating for ADUs, accessory dwelling units. And one of the concerns that we've heard from local municipalities is it's hard to assess a home that has, you know, a primary dwelling unit and then an accessory dwelling unit. Have you seen any issues? There's a few ADUs around town. Sometimes they're carriage home, secondary units, granny pods, whatever you want to call them. How does that affect your job as an assessor? And do you think that could then increase our housing stock? You saw the lack of number of new units. So that's twofold question
Sure.
there.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's a problem for us to assess them. If they're, I think one issue that came up was maybe tiny homes, like if they're a real permanent structure, but as long as they're a permanent structure, it's not a problem for us to assess them. Now, is it hard to determine the correct value? It might be, because it adds some uniqueness to a property, and if there aren't sales to tell you what the value is, then that could be difficult. But I mean, we have, I guess when I think of that type of situation, I think of in the peninsula, there's a lot of extra units over the garages, and we assess them. And I don't have a problem with that, and it seems like a reasonable thing to add if there's a need for them.
I promise I didn't have these until you started presenting. I wasn't planning on bombarding you, but I was very interested in your presentation. So when you track the number of home sales, you were talking about condos. Sorry, I'm glitching here. You were talking about condos potentially being, you know, similar to rentals. Do you ever track the number of home sales that are then sold to LLCs that then are actually taking home ownership opportunities off the market for rentals? Is that something that your office would ever look at to find that nuance?
We haven't. We don't get the rental permits. I mean, we could easily do a search on homes that have ownership as LLCs. We could do that for sure. Not always. That wouldn't automatically tell us what number of properties are rentals. I don't think. If somebody didn't put a rental in an LLC, then you wouldn't know. But the city has the rental permits. We don't have direct access to those, so we couldn't run a real precise report probably that way.
Yeah, I just mentioned it because you had stated the condos were not a good indicator for sales because they're still probably being rented, but a lot of single family homes are being rented either as long-term rentals or Airbnbs, and that's becoming an issue with our housing stock. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, you're right.
okay, I do have a whole sticky note, but I'm going to pause and see if there's anybody else on this call that has a question.
Jessica, you're doing such a great job. I think you should keep going.
Thanks, Art. I'll keep going. When you hear challenges on tax assessment, do you typically have it be from the higher evaluated properties, the mid-range, or the lower evaluated properties? Do you see a general trend there as the assessor?
Well, if you're just talking about the phone calls that we get, I don't think that I do. But once you get to the appeal period, the real board of review, I would say you don't have as many of the lower valued. And beyond board of review, it's almost entirely tax reps like Hy-Vee, Menards, those kinds of things. So value-wise for just residential properties, when we send out assessments, I don't notice one or the other. I don't think. I think if you're talking about board of review, though, I would expect more higher dollar residential homes than lower.
Thank you. I see that Art came on camera. Art, did you really have a question? I know you love what I do, but.
Well, I guess what I was going to ask Brad is, and because you're asking some great, very specific questions, but I was going to go more in the general sense is, what are you seeing out there as far as trends in just with city policies or county policies, that kind of stuff, when it comes to assessments, or just across the country? Just, I mean, if you're just kind of looking at your crystal ball and predicting things, what are you seeing? Things that kind of, maybe a light bulb goes off in your head, or this is different, or this could be a game changer? Kind of a broad question, but
Yeah.
figured to get your opinion.
Yeah, unfortunately, no, I don't really see anything. I mean, as I showed on that chart, I think, and it's been the same with commercial construction, just there hasn't been a lot of activity lately. And I don't know if your question is kind of to get what would spur some activity, or what's limiting activity. I don't know. I mean, costs and interest rates are obviously very big things, but I think we always talk, well, at least when you're talking about affordable housing, seems like incentivizing things for the developers is what has to happen to make people want to put up that kind of property. So, I mean, I don't really have an answer for your question. No, I don't. We kind of are at the back end of development. We see stuff once it's done. We're not in the early stages, so I probably not qualified to even answer.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, and I was even more going just with technology, or maybe assessment trends, as far as just, are there fewer people out in the field, relying more on technology in the
Oh,
future?
sure, yeah,
All that kind of stuff. Sorry, yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
No, actually, if I could share
very
my
broad
screen,
question, so you can
I
take
can
a lot
share
of
my
ways.
screen. I'm going to show you something again. So are you seeing, hopefully you're seeing what I've got up on the
Yes.
screen. So we've got Power BI. All of our information is in what we call Vision, a real estate software. And we would always run reports, but it'd take time. But this, I can change. So like right now I pull up a map area, 1-story frame. Let's just change the size here. 900. I want to find a house that's between 900 square feet and 1,000 that's sold in 2024 or 25. There it is. Boom. I've got assessments per square foot, sale price per square foot, sales ratios, conditions, all that stuff. So technology has been a big thing for us. We can do so much more than what we used to be able to do quickly. You can update values or do analysis really quickly. Our office doesn't use iPads or tablets in the field. The county assessor's office does. They really like them. We're still I'm not sure that we've determined it's faster or better in any way, but I'm sure there's some parts of it that are better and some parts of it that are worse. For commercial, I'm measuring, actually, I think on residential, we're using lasers to measure. We used to use, well, 20 years ago, we'd use a 10-foot stick. So, I mean, yeah, there's been a lot of changes for us in technology. But yeah, this Power BI screen that we use, it's been a really good software for us. We've got a couple of people in our office that are really good, and we've used it for, well, here's our analysis of all the sales that have happened. Like after updating our values for residential, we are at 97.95% as a median on all of our sales right now. If we were to send them out the way they are right now, which we're not done, but there's different. This shows how much value we're going to be adding. There's another one that shows us. Oh, we've got parcels with flags that we need to go out and check certain things. So yeah, things have come a long way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's really neat. Last question that I had was the balance between taxing at either the 95 or the 105% and how that affects, I mean, I see a couple of school board members on here. If you're at that 100%, it's the true understanding of what the house is assessed at. But if you're at 95%, it's actually little bit less direct cost out of homeowners' pockets, but at the cost of those agencies that receive the tax benefit, right? So I don't know if you want to talk about that at all, or if any of our, I know we have school board members on here, that want to discuss that maybe from the school board perspective?
Well, I'll just say for us, defending your property values, if you're at 100% or over 100% is difficult. Obviously, if you're right at 100%, half of your assessments or half of the sales, we're going to have assessments that are over that. Now, obviously, the Department of Revenue gives us that leeway, but if people are appealing their value and we're over 100%, I think there's usually going to be sympathy to lower their assessment. So by going at 98, 99%, you're still pretty much at market value, but 50% of the properties aren't over assessed now. So I guess that's the way I look at it. There are some assessors that push it closer to 100. The budget, I mean, really in the end, the assessments are a way to distribute the taxes. I guess is the way I look at it, not a way to raise taxes. I mean, I guess that's the simplest way to put it. Really, our job is we're determining what we think the values are. After that, all the real tax stuff happens. But we're distributing it.
That makes sense. Well, thank you, Brad. Not seeing any other questions here. Well, hand clap. Thank you so much for being willing to share. And this is recorded, so we can make sure to share it with others that were not able to join us today. As I'm trying to click through my screen here. There we go. I always like to take time to thank our sponsors for the coalition, to be able to have Brad here and for hosting these meetings, because without community support from all levels, the coalition would not exist. So thank you for putting your trust, time, effort, and support into us. To appreciate and demonstrate that appreciation of support, we invite everybody that's on here that are supporters of affordable housing to join us at our spring social that will take place again at the greenhouse across from City Hall in Iowa City on Wednesday, March 26th. Anybody that is a paying dues member of the coalition will get a free drink ticket, and we'll be able to hang out, learn about the partner agencies that we work with, and just hopefully welcome in the spring that's here to stay, hopefully, at the end of March. You can always find us via email as well, and then follow us on social media. And other than that, I just would like to welcome everybody that is on here, if you haven't already, to become a member. Membership is what drives our initiatives, our advocacy, our education, and all of our partnerships. So we welcome everyone that supports affordable housing to become a member.